Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you a totally evil puzzle I accidentally created. It is white to move and win, and if you want to try to solve it, go ahead, but here's a warning. The first 19 moves are unique and the only winning moves, and even after that, white still needs to play accurately much longer to actually convert it. So if you want to try to solve it, you can try to see how many correct moves you would have gotten, and if not, I'm going to start by showing you the full solution, and then we'll go over possible variations. Okay, so white's pawns are over here, and to advance them right now they're blocked, so we have to do something, and the first move is bishop g5, check. And if the bishop blocks, you can just promote to a queen, so the king will move to c7, and now we advance them with e7, threatening to queen in many different ways. Now, if black takes, we just take back and make a queen. So black's trick here is that he will promote his own pawn. Now, if we try to stop it, black will just take this pawn, and we're not winning anymore. So, what we need to do is not take this and promote to a queen, but we have to give a check first. Now, if black moves to any of these squares, we can promote with check. So black will go here. And now we have to give another check. So this is, again, the only move to actually win. And after the king goes back, only now do we can take the bishop and make a queen. And now black will make his own queen, and we reach the next stage of this puzzle. Okay, so how do we win from here? So the only move to win is to move the king to g2. Only move. If you go to f2, by the way, black will get g3 in with check, and that will be a problem because this pawn will be further advanced, and you'll see later on. But for now, king g2 is the only move, and after queen a2 check, we have to go king f1, queen b1 check, king e2, and after queen b5 check, we have to play the only move here, king e1. Now, if we go to d2 or d1, black will be able to give a check on the d file from here, and we have to avoid that. Otherwise, it will be a perpetual. So king e1, and after queen b1 check, we can advance. There's no check from d5 now. Queen b2 check, king d3, we advance. Queen b1 check. And now here, we can't really advance because we'll get checked very hard on the square, and we have to move back. So we have to play king c3 to avoid that check. After queen a1, king c4 only move. And also, just to note, there are some other possible moves that keep the win, but these are the only ones that advance forward. Okay, queen a2 check, king d4, queen b2 check, and now we can advance. King d5. There's no check on e4. Queen b3, king e5, and we sacrifice the bishop, and now we take this pawn. Okay, now this is the next stage. So black will play g3, and this is the important part. If we allowed g3 with check, this pawn would have been further up, but you'll see more detail later on. And now white's only winning move here is actually queen to g7, threatening a discovered check. Black will check on f3. Now we have to play king g5. And you'll see later on why other moves don't work. Okay, black will play king e3, and now this is the first point where white has multiple ways to win. And it's either king h5, then to h6, or king g6, then to h6. So those are really the only two. So king g6, queen e4, king h6, queen f4, king h7, queen f5, and then we hide the king with king g8. So the king has walked all over the board, and now it's hidden. But it's not over because black has queen d5 pinning the pawn. And now white has to find again the only winning move here, queen to g4. Not very easy to see at all. And after g2, now white can find a triangulation with king g7, queen e5 check, King g7 threatens to make a queen. King h7, threatening to make a queen. Queen f6, stopping it. Now king g8. And black cannot get his queen back to the d5 square like in the previous position and repeat it. So black will play queen f3, and after takes, he'll make a new queen. King h7, and after some checks, white will take the pawn, and after some more checks, now if black checks again, we can trade queens. And after queen f8, now there are other possible ways to win, but I'm going to show the table-based top moves because we have only 6 pieces on the board. We can see the best moves according to the table base, so I'm just going to play those moves till checkmate. So this is how a perfect win would look like from here. Still not the simplest. We finally make 2 queens, and eventually it will be just too much for black. And of course, a basic checkmate. Okay, so that is 65 moves till checkmate, and that's probably the actual evaluation of the start position made in 65, but we can't be fully sure. Okay, so now let's go over other lines. So bishop g5, here e7, a2, and now I have to give this check. So why not taking this right away? Well, if we take right away, we don't have a bishop here, and let's see how that affects things. And after some checks, black has this check on e5. With the bishop on e3, there wouldn't have been this check. Let's continue. And here, black has the only move to draw queen e4 check, and with the bishop here, that wouldn't have been possible. Okay, let's go back, and after, let's say white, even if white escapes, black has this only move here in this position, check on c6, and with the bishop on e3, we could have played queen c5 and traded queens. But in this case, black is able to draw. Okay, so we have to give the check. And now, why not king f2? So if king f2, black has this tempo move, g3 with check. So let's see how that affects things. We played a similar line as before. We sack our bishop, and now black has g2. And now the black pawn is much closer to queening. So queen g7, queen f3, and now unfortunately we can't really go king g5 because it just makes a queen with check. So we have to go something like king e6, and after something like this, we both promote, and as you can clearly see, this is not going to be winning for white. It's actually better for black. Okay, so let's say we move this way, king g2. Now black has this only move, queen a2 check, queen d5, and now we're actually in the previous variation where black can check from here and eventually take this bishop and get this pawn forward. Okay, so king g2 is the only move. What about king h2? Why doesn't this work? Well, in this case, black has a simpler, has many ways to draw, but a simpler one is queen e5 and then queen takes e3. And as you can see here, black's controlling the only checking squares for the white queen, so white doesn't really have enough time to promote this pawn. And actually, now this could be treated as its own puzzle. It's white to move and draw, and there's only one drawing move for white here. So the drawing move is queen to b4, threatening to make a queen. And after the main line, h3, king f1, black has a few options, but the main line is queen d3. Oh, okay, actually here black has more than one option. Let's go over some simpler options. If black plays h2, after queen f4 check, white makes a queen, and this is winning for white. So h2 doesn't work. Let's say queen to f3 check. If queen f3 and h2, we get this line, and unfortunately black cannot escape the check, so white has some only moves that he needs to find, but black is unable to escape the checks. Okay, so the main line for black is g3 check, and after king e1, Also, king e1 right away wasn't possible. We gotta provoke g3, because after g3, our king is stalemated. And all we have to do now, after h2, is get rid of the queen and the pawn, forcingly, and we're stalemated. So let's see how we do that. And after king d7, we have f8 knight check, only move. And after king d8 and a few more only moves, we can finally give up our queen, and it's going to be stalemate. So that's really the only way for white to draw. It's queen b4. Okay, so why not something like queen e8? Well, if queen e8, we have this line, and after h2, black has only move king b5, and eventually black will take the pawn in, and we're going to be down too much material. So black's going to win. Okay. Anyway, so the whole point is that king f2 allows g3 with tempo, and king h2 allows queen e5 check and taking the bishop. So let's move on. So what about other possibilities? If black plays h3 check, we just we have enough holes to sneak our king in. If queen e5, there's bishop f4 pinning. If queen to f6, there is queen c5 check, and then queen. And if queen e1 check, king f4, and we just escape. No more checks. So that one's pretty simple. So queen a2 check, king f1. Now why not bishop f2? That might be interesting. Well, let's look at a sample line, but in short, black will be able to give continuous checks. So only move is h3 here. And over here, black has the saving move, f4. And black's queen is controlling white's checking squares again. So after some more moves, white can win black's pawns, but black's queen is well placed to give continuous checks forever. Okay, so bishop f2 doesn't work. What about king g1? If king g1 back, then now black has queen b1 instead of a1, and now we're back to a g3 check. After we're back to this line after king f2 g3 check. Okay, anyway. Okay, so queen b5. Now black has another try here, another possibility. Queen a2 check. It's just a different set of lines. And after king e1, queen a1, king d2, queen a5, now white has to play king c2 to actually make progress, which was not a move in the previous lines. King c2, and now we're back to the main line. Now also, bishop d2 doesn't work because after queen e6 check only move, king d1, black has the only move here, king to d7 to draw the game. And after something like this, black just is able to check forever. Okay, so why not king d3 right away? Well, black can check along the d file, and white's king cannot get away. Okay, so let's go back to the main line. Now here again, king d2 is a blunder because black will be able to check from d5, and everything just works out and white cannot make progress. And if king c1, it's just too difficult to make any progress. You lose the pawn. Okay, so king e1 is the only move. Okay, so king c3. If king d4, this doesn't work because of this check here. And no progress. And why not king c4? King c4 allows other checks. And black's defending the only two squares for the queen to check, and it's not good. So king c3, queen a2 check. Now if black tries queen to a4, we get this line. It's much easier for white to escape the checks. Okay, and if queen to f1, white can escape the checks much more quickly. And there we go. And if queen takes c3, just a simple trade of queens. Okay. Okay, so king takes f5. Why not king f6? This doesn't work because after h3, if we try queen e7, black promotes in time, and if queen, something like queen b4, still black promotes in time. So we have to take this pawn, and after g3, queen g7. So if queen e8, then just queen f3, g2, and black's threatening to promote with check. Okay, so king g5 is the only move. King e6 doesn't work because black will be able to promote his own pawn. And king g6 doesn't work because after queen g4, black will trade queens and just promote at the same time. So king g5 actually prevents queen g4 check and trading queens. Okay, so now queen g4 is the only move. Some other tries for white are queen g6, but after black plays g2, king h7, g1 queen, and black wins the pawn. And if king g7, then queen d4 check, and black promotes the pawn. So that's not good. So queen g6 is not working. Now queen c3 checks, another good try, but this unfortunately still doesn't work because after king b8 only move, let's say some like queen e3. Yes, let's go with queen e3 first. Black has g2, and after a lot of only moves for black, king c7 only move, king c8 only move, and after all these moves, and h3, and black's pawns are just too far, and black's threatening to queen. So queen e3, if king g7, after queen g5, black just repeats the position. So this doesn't actually work. So queen g4 is the only move still. And after that, there are many, and from here there are a few different ways to win, but as I've shown you, this is the main line, and so on. Okay, so now I want to show you how I came up with that puzzle accidentally. And this was happening actually after my tournament that I got my national master title. So the tournament was 5 rounds. I played 4 rounds, and I calculated that I would have gotten enough rating after those 4 rounds. So I ended up taking a 0-point bye for the last round, basically quitting. But I didn't go home because I was also the tournament director. So I had to basically wait till all the rounds were over. So I was watching Lichess TV in another room on my phone. And it just so happened that this game was being played on Lichess TV. It was a bullet game, nothing too exciting, just regular stuff happening. Black is slightly better. And eventually it was this position, something like this. And this is what got my attention. White has a beautiful pawn chain and is clearly about to win, just advancing the pawns. And here f takes g6 is the best move, and it's winning apparently, but white ends up taking this pawn. And now the problem is the black very quickly can break through and advance and make a queen, much easier than white. So white ends up bringing his king back, and after b4, if he takes, black makes a queen, and after takes, and b3, we have a draw because white's king has to stay here guarding this pawn from advancing, and black's king will take care of these 2 pawns, and there's no way to make progress for any player. So that was a draw. But because it ended in a draw, that got my attention, because in this position it was so clearly winning and white looked dominating. Like I thought it had to be winning. And it's true, f takes g6 was winning, but I was looking at the computer evaluation, and one of them was bishop d2, and it still said that it was winning. So I was kind of surprised, because like the way these pawns aren't going too far, and black can just take this pawn. So what's happening? Takes, and then bishop a3. So now we have 2 passed pawns each. So what's the problem? So okay, I kept looking, and I saw that f6 was winning. clearly just threatening f7 and then bishop h6 and then making a queen. So I was like, okay, what if bishop f8? And now I saw there was a lot of winning moves, but one of them was really, really interesting that caught my eye, and it's just bishop g5. Sort of a quiet move, and it just threatens f7 checkmates. So that got me thinking, and I ended up coming up with the following puzzle. Okay, this is the position I finally came up with after watching that game. It is, again, white to move and win, and this one's actually much simpler, and maybe slightly nicer. So the first move, just like that game, is bishop to g5, threatening f7 checkmate. So black has to play king d8, and after f7, king c7, e7, a2. Now the problem ends much more simply because we have to give still bishop f4 and bishop e3, and then after we can take the queen, black makes the queen, and white can just cover up the king. There's no more checks from black, and white will end up making another queen very soon. So it was a pretty nice position. I added some random pawns. I didn't want the black king to come to b7. After this check, I didn't want the king to come to b7. I forced it to come to b6 so we can give this other check. And everything just seemed to work out very beautifully. And it's a very nice little puzzle. And all these are the only moves, but there was a problem. When I was turning on the computer eval, it said the bishop g1 was winning, but it also said that king to g2 was like, it was a sliver. It was switching between like plus 0.05, plus 1, something like, and I was just unsure, and like, I want to have a clean solution, but unfortunately this doesn't work because bishop g1 is obviously winning, but maybe king g2 is. So, and after looking into why king g2 was also winning, I found that crazy variation. So what I ended up doing was that I placed the king on g1 to stop this bishop e1 idea and continue with the king g2 idea, because everything just worked out so beautifully. But unfortunately, if I start with the king on g1 after bishop g5, which is the nice move, if the king's on g1, black just plays bishop c5 check, and then it ruins everything. So unfortunately, I had to start the position one move in, and so we get the crazy position we just analyzed. And also, to solve this problem with king to g2 being correct, black can have another pawn on c6. That was my final solution, and the pawn on c6 just prevents white's king from taking this long journey over here and eventually escaping. So black pawn on c6 will solve the issue, and then we would have the bishop g5 win for white. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video, and this was my journey in creating a pretty crazy chess puzzle. Pretty much impossible. I think it's harder than almost any study out there. And I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think. Goodbye.